My name is Olusegun Olatayo Moses. I used to be called Olusegun Awoyemi. I changed my surname to my dad's names. My dad was Professor Moses Olatayo Awoyemi. So I cut off the Awoyemi and took my dad's middle name, Moses Olatayo. So my surname is Olatayo Moses. I'm Olusegun Olatayo Moses. I finished from University of Ilorin and I went to do my national service. I served in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. I finished my national service at the end of 2004. Now, come 2005, what was next? I proceeded to Ghana to join my father. My dad was a lecturer, well, he was on sabbatical in Ghana, and he had been in Ghana for 2 years at the time. The sabbatical was meant to be 1 year, but because they wanted to keep him in University of Education, Winneba, Ghana, they gave him the position of a director. So my dad was the Director of Academic Quality Control in University of Education, Winneba, Ghana. So I went to join him in January 2005. And I wanted to do my master's in Ghana, but the master's would start in September 2005. So I had to wait till September. Now my father lived on campus in University of Education, Winneba, and I'll wake up in the morning, I'll walk around the campus, go to my dad's office, doing nothing. And because of my dad's position, his job required him to travel to all the universities in Ghana. So he was going to Cape Coast, University of Cape Coast. We will go to Kumasi, University of Science and Technology, Kumasi. He'll go to Legon, University of Ghana, Legon in Accra. He was going to all the different, with the driver. So I would just join him. I'll go with him, traveling to all the different universities. And I saw how beautiful their campuses were. Beautiful, lovely, the landscape was, and I was like speaking to students, guys, what's fun here? What do you have anything on entertainment, program or events? And they were like, not really. I'm like, what? Coming from the University of Ilorin, where every party I was there. I mean, the biggest parties, club parties, were part of the I will be there. So I was like, no, this is too quiet. I think we need to bring some fun in this campuses. So I thought about maybe doing something that will bring all the campuses in Ghana under one umbrella. So the idea came to start a magazine. So I decided to first go around, and then I set up these different teams of students in different campuses. And I decided to call the magazine Eminence. I registered a company called Eminent Entertainment. And my registration in Ghana was, I registered the company, this is October 2005. Now, remember, I was supposed to start the master's in 2005, September. By the time September was getting close, I had gone far. I had a team of students in different campuses. I had been covering articles. I had gone to different events. I have so many things already. So I thought to myself, even if I do my master's, I'll still have to go and look for a job anyway. So I registered the company Eminent Entertainment, and then I had to get my work permit in Ghana. My work permit is also, Eminent Entertainment. And I mean, I actually have 6 passports. But before I left Ghana, I'd used 2 passports already. Traveling all over, out of Ghana, and just trying to get my articles, do all of the, So, and then now it was time to print my first edition. And thank God my dad, he gave me the money to do my first printing. So I had to come to Nigeria to do all the printing, and I took the magazines to Ghana. When I got to Ghana, straight away, I was in all the campuses trying to promote it. We did a launch. I tried to just make sure that I was everywhere so people can see that the magazine that I had been talking about all of this month, and now it's become a reality. And then I started to try and get some adverts. But the sales of the magazine wasn't going as I wanted it. I was selling some copies, but considering how much money I'd invested to travel, to go around, to print, and all of the journeys that I'd been on, It wasn't encouraging, but I kept going anyway. And people were saying, you know what, I think you need to partner a Ghanaian. You need to get someone to come into this partnership so that there's more, people can accept it and they can buy into it. So I kept moving anyway, I kept going. So I went to Virgin Nigeria office. Then Virgin was still flying Nigeria and Ghana, just Virgin. So I went to them, I said, I want to do my next edition, and we have a lot of Nigerian students in Ghana. I said, I want to do a column in my next edition for Virgin flyers, students who, people who fly Virgin. So I want to promote you. And they were like, oh, this is a brilliant idea. But we have an advertising agent who decides all our adverts. So we're going to give you his contact, and then you can reach out to him. If he says we should put our advert in your next edition, we will do it. So they gave me his contact, and I rang him. And then I introduced myself to him. He said, oh, sorry, I'm not available. Call me next week. Okay. Next week came, I phoned him. Again, he wasn't available. Again, it took me 1 month to meet this guy eventually. Now, when he gives me the address to come and meet him, he gives me the address of, one of the biggest TV stations in Ghana, TV Africa. So now I get to TV Africa. I introduce myself. I want to see this person. And then they take me to his office. When I walked in, only for me to find out that he's actually the son of the owner of the TV station. And once I introduced myself, the first thing he asked me was, and I gave him the magazine. He looked at the magazine. He was like, wow, who owns this magazine? I said, it's me. He looked at me and he kept scrolling the magazine. He was like, wow. He said, this is all I've been trying to do this all my life. Wow. He said, can I ask you a favor? I said, what? He said, for your next edition, can I do your cover page for you for free? I was like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? And then he kept, and then me and him talking. Eventually, this guy I'd been trying to see for a month. I've been trying to see this guy. He kept me in his office. We'd go out, take me for lunch. It's me and him till the end of the day. The entire day I spent in his office. He would not let me go. We're just talking, and we got on really well. And the guy says, you know what? Can we work together on your next edition? Can we work together? I said, oh, okay. I'll get back to you. So I get home and I tell my dad that this is what's happening. And my dad, right, well, we've been hoping that we'll get into a partnership. So if it's already coming from him, then why not? So I go and I agreed to the partnership that we can work together for the next edition, which was great. So now we had to register another company. So not Eminent Entertainment, we register Eminence Limited, because my magazine is called Eminence, but my company is called Eminent Entertainment. So now we register Eminence Limited. Me and him share 50-50. Okay? We'll go into the partnership. Now we start working on the second edition. Now, trust me, this guy knows everyone in Ghana. The who's, the cream de la cream, everybody. The vice president's son was coming to our office. Through this guy, I knew the biggest names in Ghana. Komala Dumor, may his soul rest in peace. I met different people through him, and we started getting articles. Fidelity Bank just came into Ghana that year. It was him who got the contract. My partner got the contract to do their signage, do their bill, and he already introduces me to the MD of Fidelity Bank. I'm already interviewing him. So I met a lot of people, and now my office is in TV Africa, and that's where I was operating from. Now, he had employees who were working for him, but me and him were partners, so I had a space in his office. Now we're working on the second edition. I'm still going out because I had all the campus contacts, all the digits, all the girls. I need everybody. They were all just had a phone call away. So they were like, wow, you're the one controlling the whole Ghana. They'll tease me, and I'm like, oh, no. I've just because I travel to all of these campuses and I have an Eminence crew. So I have students on all of the campuses who were working with me. So once I get there, I'm looking for my crew. What's going on, guys? What's the event? Well, how far are we? Who? Then they start. Those are the guys who identify who should be in the magazine. They're the ones who tell me, oh, I think this person should be in the magazine. And so I had all of the contacts in Ghanaian universities. So that's how myself and my partner, we worked on this edition. We were going to do bring 50 girls into the next edition. We wanted, the girls, when we put the word out, over 200 girls, more than that, lined up all at TV Africa, wanted to do an audition just to be in our magazine. The whole of Ghanaian campuses were like Eminence magazine. So I was with from 2000. So this is 2006 now, because it was 2005/2006 I did my first edition. Now come the rest part of 2006, I was with my partner on this second edition. By the time we get to the end of 2006, now getting ready to go and print, we wanted to go and print in South Africa. And suddenly he says to me, we need to have a meeting. That's my partner. What meeting? We're in the same office anyway. But he says, we need to have a meeting. Okay. So I go and then we have this meeting. And then he said to me, I've done more than you in this partnership. I said, oh yeah, of course. You know everyone. You're the one who has it all. I don't know anyone. But I know, yes, you've done more than me. He says, so I deserve more than I have in the company. I said, okay, you deserve more. Okay, so what are you saying? How much more do you think you deserve? And he said to me, I deserve to have 90% of the company. I said, what? This was my idea. I was already doing Eminence magazine. I just came to you for an advert. You decided to join me and you wanted to partner with me. I agreed. Yes, you know everyone in Ghana. Yes, you have all the contact. Yes, that's why you came into the partnership in the first place. He says he deserves to have 90%. I said, okay. So I shook him and I walked away. That was the last time I went in there. So now we're now at the end of 2006. Now I had to go back to the drawing board. Now come 2007. I'm now again picking up the pieces, trying to work on my second edition. For the articles, the biggest of the Fidelity Bank, the Komla Dumont, because we went to Komla Dumont's house, with his dogs. I did a big interview on it. I had to remove all the articles, everything, because my side also, I had something to do with the Nollywood, because at the time people were watching a lot of Nigerian movies and the Nollywood actors were the big names. So for my first edition, I featured Pat Atta. I don't know if you know Pat Atta, one of the big names in the Hollywood. I flew to Nigeria. I was with Pat, in his house in Ikeja, me and him, and I got all the pictures, all the articles about him. So I featured Pat Atta for my first edition. For my second edition now, I flew to Nigeria also. I featured Jim Ike. Jim Ike was my next feature film. So now I'm working on my second edition. And Jim Ike, I remember meeting him. Such a wonderful human. He's lovely, down to earth. And that's me and Jim Ike. I remember meeting him, and then he gave me some contacts. He said, "Oh, I've got some friends in Ghana." He gave me one of his friends' numbers. So tell him I'm gonna be in Ghana soon. So so I featured Jim Ike. I got some other articles. I started writing all the remaining articles. I did everything all by myself, and then come about March 2007 now, I launched my second edition, finally. And I remember still going around the campuses, traveling, trying to just promote my second edition. Now it's finally out after wasting all of those time from last year, with the partnership that never worked. So now my second edition is out. I'm still going around. And by this time, my dad was already, he was feeling sick, he was ill, he had to leave Ghana. So my dad now had to go back to Nigeria. So it was me alone in Ghana. I was just trying to promote my second edition. And again, it wasn't moving the way I wanted it to move. People were buying, but not as much as what I invested. Again, I'm like just getting frustrated. And that's when I started to think, you know what, I think I might have to go back and do my master's. That's what I wanted to do. So now 2007 was gradually rolling, because I did shows also. I did events I did shows. And now we finished 2007, come 2008, my last show in Ghana. And even part of my promotion, I remember, the Black Stars of Ghana just, finished playing one of the competitions, and we all met at one of the clubs. They were celebrating. I had Junior Agogo. I don't know if you know Junior Agogo, one of big, may so rest in peace. He's passed away now. Junior Agogo, I met him. He was happy. He had my magazine. I took pictures with him. I met Dede Ayo. That's Andre Ayo. Also met him. Had my magazine. We were all celebrating. I saw Samson Siasia. He also came in that night, and it was all like trying to just promote my magazine. But I didn't still make the profit I wanted to make, and so now I was frustrated. I was going to go back and do my master's. So I left Ghana June 2008. The following, I left Ghana, but I still had my last show. My last show was, I had Back to School Independence Storm. This is 5th of March 2008. And you can see Eminence magazine. I had all the artists in Ghana, Reggie Rockstone, there was Kweku T, D Black, all of the biggest names in Ghana. The artists, One Love, Cal Kese, I knew all of them, and they were all, Now, I thought, I'm gonna leave. So I leave Ghana June 2008. So I went to the UK to do my master's. And that's 3.5 years in Ghana. Now I'm in the UK, London School of Commerce. I'm doing my master's in international business. And again, the passion was still there to still do something, bring a community together. So whilst I was studying, I was reaching out to other international students, because I'm an international student, reaching out. I thought, I could do a magazine that would disseminate information on international study. What's your experience? Just to help people who are looking to study abroad. So again, I started Eminence magazine again in the UK. So this was my first edition I did in the UK. Again, all the articles I wrote by myself. I just I met scientists from Italy. These guys are they're doing great. Also working on I went to Spain. There's a place called Sagrada La Familia in Spain. I did an article, lovely edifice. I covered different art. I wrote everything by myself just to try and disseminate information. So that's my first edition in the UK. I did that, and then, but I printed all of it with my money, And now it wasn't more entertainment or parties. It was more time to steer towards education. And whilst I did it, again now, I finished my master's in 2009, did my graduation in 2010. Now I did first edition, and then come 2011, I did another edition. Again, this time I was in King's College London. I was just trying to promote the magazine, talking about why experience, you got to have exposure, helps you to see the rest of the world. Don't just be locked up in your own little worlds, So I was writing so many articles, interviewing students from all over, from Canada, from France, all international students, sharing their experiences all over the world. I've got it all, but by this time, I started a family. I now funding the magazine with my own money now became even a bigger challenge. So I just, I just abandoned it and I moved on with life. Now, I did so many mistakes because I relied on my own intelligence. I started, so many decisions I made led me nowhere, investment decisions, so many things I lost. There was one that I got a loan. I bought a truck. Sent it to Nigeria, hoping that it was being managed. Unfortunately, they were meant to be paying me. They didn't pay me. I had to come from the UK to come and collect my truck. It was so many mistakes from mistakes. So many things were going wrong in my life. Thank God, I was now introduced to my church, Living Faith Foundation. Reverend Joe Olaya is our president and founder, and that's my spiritual father. And when I joined Living Faith Foundation in 2011, and then thank God I had the foundation already, but I stayed off. I did my own thing, and when life decided to show me that I couldn't do it myself, and I returned back to God, and then I started working in the church. I became a church worker from 2011, and all of the years I served, I was diligent, I was focused, and all the mistakes that I had made were now on me. They were now haunting me, and God was helping me to pull through. I was just taking it one step at a time, and I was growing spiritually, and to the glory of God. And then whilst walking and serving, and I became a deacon, walked my way up. My spiritual growth was, and then till the time I became a deacon in the church, and then moved on, and then continued to serve and do God's work. And to the glory of God, it's 15 and a half years now, and I became a pastor. I was ordained by Reverend Joe Olaya, and God has just been, God has been faithful. God started speaking to me, and God started telling me some of the things He wanted to do, and God started saying to me, what's in your hand? What's in your hand? And I'm just praying, fasting, and we have all our conventions. I'll travel to Nigeria, we'll go for the convention, come back again. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? And suddenly, the Lord brought back Eminence that I started in Ghana 21 years ago. And that word Eminence, suddenly, because it's Eminent Entertainment that I had, and the word of the Lord that says that we're created for God's pleasure. We're meant to pleasure God. God should be pleased. But I had Eminent Entertainment, pleasing man. And now God is saying eminent, which are meant for, was distinguished. That's what it means. Distinguished, it means special, it means royalty. Now God says you need to do eminent for Christ. Eminent for Christ. So now be distinguished for Christ, be distinguished for God. And all of the journey from when I joined my church and God started working with me, all my wilderness journey, the things that God taught me along the way, God started saying to me, eminent for Christ is what you should use as the vehicle to tell the younger generation about walking on the path of righteousness, following the way of the Lord, not depending on your own understanding. And that's how Eminent for Christ was born. Now, why am I doing this documentary? I mean, it's important to know the reason behind everything. You didn't just wake up in the morning just because you can talk or because you can be on social media and get some likes. No, there has to be a purpose. There has to be a reason for you to share what you're sharing. And this documentary is just to let anyone who hears or listens to me know that Eminent for Christ is you living your life in holiness, living your life in righteousness for God. The Bible says we're the temple of the Holy Spirit. And also, we're a peculiar people. We're a chosen generation. We have to live our life. You cannot please a holy God if you don't live holy. And that's why Eminent for Christ is about individuals, about you, about me, living our lives to please God, living our lives so that we can be the man and the woman that God has called us to be. And I pray that every one of us who has listened to this will be able to just begin to walk in the way of the Lord. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.